Amazon S3, simple storage service object storage for files, objects, in buckets with very high durability. Key knobs that show up in architecture questions, storage classes and lifecycle policies, event notifications, versioning and MFA delete, object lock, worm compliance/legal hold, bucket policies, including org scoping, VPC gateway endpoints, transfer acceleration, requester pays, and CloudFront as an origin. Amazon EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud Resizable Virtual Machines. Key ideas, instance families/sizing, security groups, AMIs, instance store versus EBS, placing instances in subnet/AZs, and scaling fleets via auto-scaling behind load balancers. Amazon RDS, Relational Database Service Managed Relational Databases, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MariaDB, SQL Server, Oracle, where AWS handles backups, patching options, and automated HA features. Key ideas, multi-AZ for HA, read replicas for read scaling, storage types, GP versus provision IOPS, snapshots, and credential management via Secrets Manager. AWS Lambda, serverless functions that run code on demand without managing servers. Key patterns, event-driven processing, S3 events, SQS triggers, API gateway, scaling with request volume, and decoupling bursts by putting SQS between producers and Lambda consumers. Amazon VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, your isolated network in AWS. Key ideas, public versus private subnets, route tables, NAT gateways for outbound internet from private subnets, and private service access using VPC endpoints. AWS auto-scaling, automatically adjusts capacity for supported resources, most commonly EC2 auto-scaling groups. Key patterns, target tracking, step scaling, scheduled scaling, and scaling based on queue depth, for example SQS backlog, or other CloudWatch metrics. Amazon SQS, Simple Queue Service Managed Message Queue for decoupling producers and consumers. Key ideas, standard versus FIFO, ordering and exactly once processing semantics within SQS constraints, visibility timeout, dead letter queues for failed messages, and Lambda event source mappings. Amazon EBS, Elastic Block Store block storage volumes attached to EC2, like virtual disks. Key ideas, performance tiers, GP versus IO, snapshots for backup/clone, fast snapshot restore for faster restores, and that EBS is AZ scoped. Amazon DynamoDB, managed NoSQL key value and document database with single-digit millisecond latency. Key ideas, on-demand versus provision capacity, streams for change events, point-in-time recovery, PITR, and using it with Lambda for serverless apps. Amazon Aurora, managed database engine compatible with MySQL/PostgreSQL, built for high performance and HA. Key ideas, reader replicas for read scaling, Aurora auto-scaling for replicas, multi-AZ style resilience, and fast cloning for creating dev or test copies without impacting prod. AWS KMS, Key Management Service Managed Encryption Key Service used by many AWS services to encrypt data at rest and to log key usage. Key ideas, customer-managed keys, rotation, auditability, multi-region keys, and using KMS to encrypt things like S3 objects, EBS volumes, RDS storage, and EKS secrets encryption. Amazon CloudFront, global CDN that caches and accelerates content from origins, S3, ALB, on-premises. Key ideas, reduce latency, protect origins by restricting direct S3 access, OAI/OAC pattern, integrate with WAF, and serve static and dynamic content via different cache behaviors. AWS IAM, Identity and Access Management Authentication and Authorization for AWS. Key ideas, users, roles, policies, groups, least privilege, instance roles for EC2, and resource-based policies, like S3 bucket policies or Lambda resource policies. Amazon ECS, Elastic Container Service Managed Container Orchestration for running containers as tasks and services. Key ideas, run on EC2 or on Fargate, integrate with ALB/NLB, and scale with service auto-scaling. Amazon API Gateway, managed front door for APIs, REST/HTTP/WebSocket. Key ideas: authentication/authorization options, throttling, and integrations to Lambda and AWS services, like sending to SQS, for serverless ingestion. Amazon EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service Managed Kubernetes Control Plane. Key ideas: run pods on managed nodes or Fargate, integrate logging/metrics with CloudWatch, and encrypt Kubernetes secrets at rest using KMS. Amazon EFS, Elastic File System Managed NFS file system for Linux workloads that can be mounted by many instances across multiple AZs in a region. Key ideas: shared POSIX file storage for multi-instance apps, suitable replacement for trying to share files via separate EBS volumes, and can be protected and replicated using AWS backup policies. Amazon FSx, managed file systems for specific workloads. Key ideas: FSx for Windows File Server for SMB with Active Directory integration and multi-AZHA, and FSx for Lustre for high-performance HPC file access that can integrate with S3 for data ingest and persistence. Amazon SNS, simple. Notification service pub/submessaging. Key ideas: fan out one published message to many subscribers, SQS queues, Lambda, HTTP endpoints, often paired with SQS to buffer and decouple consumers. Amazon Kinesis, managed streaming data platform. Key pieces that show up: Kinesis data streams for ordered shards of events with multiple consumers, Kinesis data firehose for simple managed delivery to S3/OpenSearch/Redshift with optional transformation, and Kinesis data analytics for real-time SQL style processing. AWS organizations, central governance for multiple AWS accounts. Key ideas: organization units, service control policies, guardrails, consolidated billing, and restricting access to resources using organization context, for example S3 bucket policies using principal org ID. Amazon Route 53, managed DNS. Key ideas: routing policies, latency-based, geolocation, failover, health checks, and routing users to CloudFront or regional load balancers. Amazon EventBridge, event bus for routing events from AWS services and your apps. Key ideas: scheduled rules, cron-like, and event-driven automation, invoke Lambda, send to targets, for notifications and workflows. Amazon CloudWatch, monitoring and observability. Key ideas: metrics, logs, dashboards, alarms, including composite alarms, and sharing dashboards to people who do not have AWS accounts. AWS Direct Connect, dedicated private network connection from on-premises to AWS. Key ideas: consistent latency, higher reliability than Internet VPN, used for large data transfers and hybrid architectures, often with VPN as backup. AWS CloudTrail, records account activity and API calls for auditing and investigations. Key idea: who did what, when, from where, across services, often paired with config for configuration history. AWS DataSync, managed data transfer service for moving large datasets between on-premises storage, NFS/SMB/object, and AWS storage, S3/EFS/FSx. Key ideas: accelerated transfers, scheduling, and can run over Direct Connect or VPN. AWS Fargate, serverless compute for containers used by ECS and EKS. Key idea: you run tasks/pods without managing EC2 instances, reducing operational overhead. Amazon ElastiCache, managed in-memory caching, Redis and Memcached. Key ideas: offload hot reads from databases, reduce latency, and improve throughput. AWS Snowball, physical device for offline bulk data transfer to and from AWS. Key idea: ship a device to move tens of TBs when network bandwidth is constrained or transfer must finish quickly with minimal WAN usage. Amazon Athena, serverless SQL query service over data in S3. Key ideas: query JSON, CSV, Parquet without loading into a database, pay per data scanned, minimal operational overhead for ad hoc queries. AWS Glue, managed ETL service. Key ideas, crawlers and data catalog for metadata, ETL jobs for transforms, and job bookmarks to avoid reprocessing previously processed data. AWS WAF, Web Application Firewall Layer 7 Web ACLs to protect apps from common web exploits like SQL and XSS. Key idea, attached to CloudFront, ALB, or API gateway to inspect HTTPS requests. AWS Backup, centralized backup orchestration service. Key ideas, backup plans, retention policies, cross-region copy for supported services, and used to meet RPO/RTO requirements without custom tooling. AWS Elastic Beanstalk, PaaS for deploying web apps where AWS provisions common components, EC2, load balancer, scaling, for you. Key idea, faster deployments with less infrastructure management than rolling your own. AWS Storage Gateway, hybrid storage service that presents on-premises interfaces backed by S3. Key variants that matter, File Gateway, NFS/SMB front-end to S3 with caching, and others for volume and tape use cases. AWS Global Accelerator, Anycast static IPs and edge network that routes users to the closest healthy regional endpoint, ALB/NLB, to reduce latency and improve failover. Key idea, global entry with fast regional failover, works with UDP via NLB. AWS Secrets Manager, managed secret storage for credentials, API keys, and other sensitive values. Key ideas, fine-grained IAM access, automatic rotation for supported databases, and multi-region replication. Amazon Redshift, managed data warehouse for analytics at scale. Key idea, optimized for OLAP queries over large datasets, often loaded from S3 or via Kinesis Firehose pipelines. AWS Config, resource configuration tracking and compliance rules. Key idea, detect and record configuration changes, evaluate against rules, for example required tags, and provide historical configuration timelines. AWS Shield, managed DDoS protection. Key idea, Shield Advanced adds enhanced detection/response and protections for resources like CloudFront, Route 53, and load balancers. AWS Transfer Family, managed SFTP/FTPS/FTP endpoints backed by S3 or EFS. Key idea, let external partners upload/download using familiar protocols without running your own SFTP. Servers. Amazon Macie, sensitive data discovery service for S3. Key idea, detect PII/PHI patterns in objects, alert on findings, and integrate with notifications for remediation workflows. AWS Systems Manager, ops and management tools for fleets of instances. Key ideas, Session Manager for secure shell-like access without opening inbound SSH, run command for remote execution at scale, Patch Manager, and parameter storage. AWS Lake Formation, data lake governance layer on top of S3 and the Glue data catalog. Key idea, centralized permissions for tables and columns and controlled sharing across analytic services. AWS Cost Explorer, cost and usage analytics. Key idea, filter and graph costs by service, account, tags, instance type, etc., to investigate spend changes. Amazon EMR, managed big data processing, Spark, Hadoop, Hive, etc. Key idea, run distributed analytics/ETL workloads, commonly reading from and writing to S3. Amazon QuickSight, managed BI and dashboards. Key ideas, connect to data sources, S3 via Athena, RDS, Redshift, publish dashboards, and control access by users/groups and sharing. AWS Transit Gateway, hub for connecting many VPCs and on-premises networks. Key ideas, simplify many-to-many connectivity, route control, and cross-region connectivity via Transit Gateway peering. AWS VPN, encrypted IPsec connectivity over the Internet between on-premises and AWS, site-to-site, or for clients, client VPN. Key idea, lower cost backup path compared to direct connect, typically higher latency variability. Amazon Cognito, managed user identity for apps. Key ideas, user pools for sign-up/sign-in, federation to external identity providers, and issuing tokens for authenticated API access. AWS Step Functions, serverless workflow orchestrator. Key idea, define state machines to coordinate Lambda and other service calls with retries, timeouts, and branching. Amazon MQ, managed message broker for ActiveMQ and RabbitMQ. Key idea, lift and shift traditional broker-based apps, supports multi-AZ active/standby style resilience depending on engine and deployment. AWS Budgets, cost control tool to set budget thresholds and alerts. Key idea, proactive notifications when forecasted or actual spend exceeds limits. AWS Trusted Advisor, automated best practice checks across cost optimization, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits. Key idea, quick account level recommendations. Amazon Inspector, automated vulnerability management for workloads. Key idea, finds software vulnerabilities and unintended network exposure, particularly for EC2 and container images where enabled. Amazon Neptune, managed graph database. Key idea, store and query graph relationships, nodes/edges, using graph query languages. Amazon AppFlow, managed data integration between SaaS apps and AWS services like S3. Key idea, move data with minimal custom code and schedule or trigger flows. Amazon Pinpoint, customer engagement service for targeted messaging, email, SMS, push, voice, and analytics. Key idea, campaigns and segmentation. Amazon Comprehend, NLP service for extracting insights from text. Key ideas, entity detection, sentiment, key phrases, and specialized use cases such as detecting sensitive information when paired with extraction. Amazon Transcribe, speech-to-text service. Key idea, convert audio to text for downstream analytics, search, or compliance workflows. Amazon GuardDuty, threat detection that analyzes logs and events, like CloudTrail, VPC flow logs, DNS, and some S3-related signals, to produce findings. Key idea, continuous monitoring and alerting without managing sensors. AWS Security Hub, security findings aggregation and posture management. Key idea, central dashboard that collects findings from services like GuardDuty, Inspector, and partners, and can apply standards-based checks. AWS Control Tower, landing zone and governance for multi-account environments. Key idea, automated account provisioning and guardrails using organizations, with centralized visibility. Amazon Textract, OCR and document understanding. Key idea, extract text and structured data from scanned documents and forms, often feeding downstream NLP like Comprehend. Amazon Recognition, image and video analysis. Key idea, detect labels, faces, and unsafe or inappropriate content to support moderation workflows. Amazon Translate, machine translation service. Key idea, translate text between languages for apps and pipelines. AWS Private Link, private connectivity from a VPC to a specific service endpoint using interface endpoints, powered by NLB behind the scenes. Key idea, consumer initiates connection to a provider endpoint without exposing traffic to the public internet and without broad VPC peering.